And for more on the transition and the inauguration, I'm joined by Leslie Sanchez, CBSN political contributor and Republican strategist, and Linda Tran, CBSN contributor and Democratic strategist. Hello to you both there. Leslie, looking at what the incoming press secretary said, Democrats aren't the only ones delaying Trump's nominations. What's your take on Spicer's criticism?
It's a very fair criticism. If you look at the fact that this is really where the Democrats have leverage. They can't do much. They can't do anything really to change who the nominees are, but they can slow that process down. They're going to speed through the national security nominees, but everyone else is getting this thorough vetting. To your point, though, they're both Republicans and Democrats. It's really the role and the responsibility of the Senate to do this thorough vetting. They're asking for more financial disclosures, more clarifications. But the truth be told, there's some political posturing. Sean's exactly right. They want to hold possibly more hearings, delay this for numerous more hours. But the truth be told, it will all be cleared by the end of the day.
All right, Linda, I want to get your take on the criticism as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think what's unprecedented actually is how complicated we expect the financial holdings and potential conflicts of interest may be for a number of the nominees that Donald Trump has put forward. I think that's a huge part of the reason why you're seeing some of this delay. Look, I think that both Democrats and Republicans take very, very seriously the responsibility of fully and thoroughly vetting anybody who's going to be at a cabinet level position advising the next president of the United States. And so they're making sure that they get information in front of the American people, and they're making sure that they're asking some of these tough questions, especially, again, when you have people who have potentially very, very complicated portfolios.
All right, Leslie, President-elect Trump will enter the White House with historically low levels of optimism from the entire country. Our latest CBS News poll shows just 56% of Americans are optimistic about his presidency, and his approval rating is around 40%, a significant dip since Election Day. What does he need to say during his speech tomorrow?
Sure, 56% is still a majority. This is a bit complicated because there is certainly a sensitivity to the fact that the president now will have to bring everyone together, but there's not going to be the type of oratory we're used to with President Barack Obama. I think the country for the last 8 years was very used to these kind of very high, soaring speeches that inspired. This is really a different approach about getting to work. It's pushing through a bureaucratic process and trying to break some things up in Washington that haven't worked. It might not be as lyrical and as majestic, but it's going to be authentic and it's going to be pointed. That's the distinct difference, I think. Not a lot of fluff, but really getting to the crux. And we saw some of that, I think, if you look back at his convention speech this summer.
All right, Linda, I got to get your take. What do President-elect Trump's low approval ratings mean for the early days of his term?
You know, I think that the biggest impact of these low approval ratings is something that Donald Trump probably understands very well. You know, perception is reality. And so if all we're hearing about heading into his inauguration is that he is the least popular president-elect that we've ever seen, that's a problem for him. It takes away any sort of momentum he might have hoped to have gotten, especially having pretty significant majorities in both houses of Congress. The fact that he's got nominees to the cabinet who are sort of embattled in these series of hearings, I think is problematic for him. What any incoming president wants is to be able to say that they have this mantle, this mandate, this ability to really drive their policy prescriptions and their vision for the country. And I think for Donald Trump, given these numbers and given the narrative around him, that's just not going to be the case.
All right, we already know of protests planned on Inauguration Day and over the weekend. The main protest, of course, the Women's March on Washington. It's meant to be all-inclusive. Leslie, I'm wondering, do you know of any Republicans planning to attend the Women's March on Saturday?
Actually, I do. There are some Republicans, particularly females, that feel this is important. They want their voice to be heard, and these are some individuals who've never really protested before. So there's going to be a small percentage of that, and I think that's part of the diversity of all these efforts. You're going to see Democrats, you know, in larger numbers as well, not masses, but certainly at the inauguration. People want to ensure that their voice is heard, and I think that's part of the great part of this process.
All right, during his final press conference yesterday, Mr. Obama said although he's about to become a private citizen, there are some issues that would merit him speaking up. Linda, will President Obama be vocal after leaving office, and what did you make of his comment?
You know, I think that there's a difference between being vocal and being active. I think there's no question that Barack Obama is going to be very active. He's been signaling for a very long time that he's particularly interested in the issue of redistricting and rebuilding at a local level and thinking about what those electoral maps will look like moving forward. What he's also made clear in recent days, however, is that it's really going to depend on what Donald Trump does, what his administration does. And there are certain red line issues for Barack Obama that will absolutely make him come off of the sidelines. A couple of the areas that he's highlighted include if there ends up being any sort of a Muslim registry or a ban, that is something that he would not be quiet about. And secondly, an issue that's been near and dear to his heart for the entirety of his administration is around dreamers, or those individuals who came to this country as undocumented because they came with their parents. And there's been some discussion about whether or not there was going to be any overturning of the deferred action for childhood arrivals. And Barack Obama, thinks that it would go against our core values as a nation to take any sort of action against these individuals.
All right, two of my favorites, Leslie Sanchez and Linda Tran. Always good to see you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.